Someone's watching us." The executive's whisper cut through the morning bustle as the black janitor kept his head down, mop swishing across the marble floor of Horizon Tech's headquarters. Invisible. That's what he'd become. 3 days ago, Damon Reynolds commanded this building as CEO. Now, he witnessed what power hid from him: sideways glances, whispered comments, doors that suddenly closed when certain employees approached. His hand trembled slightly as he worked. The executives walked past without a glance, their shoes tracking dirt across his freshly cleaned floor. One bumped him without apologizing, causing his ID badge to slip from his pocket. It skidded across the floor, CEO credentials flashing momentarily in the harsh fluorescent light. "Hey, you!" a sharp voice called from behind. Damon froze, heart pounding. What he would discover in the next 2 weeks as an undercover janitor would stop him cold and change everything. Horizon Tech stood as a gleaming testament to innovation in San Francisco's bustling tech corridor. Founded 15 years ago by Damon Reynolds, the company had grown from a scrappy startup in his garage to a publicly traded corporation employing over 5,000 people. Industry publications regularly featured Horizon as a most diverse workplace and best company culture winner, accolades Damon proudly displayed in the lobby alongside his own story, from college maintenance worker to tech visionary. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the executive boardroom as Damon studied the quarterly report on his tablet. His brow furrowed as he swiped through employee retention graphs that showed a troubling pattern. "These numbers don't make sense," Damon said, placing his tablet on the polished table. "Our turnover rate has jumped 32% this quarter, and it's disproportionately affecting our minority employees." Lisa Chen, the chief financial officer, nodded grimly. "The exit costs alone are concerning. Each lost senior engineer represents about $180,000 in recruitment and training investment." Across the table, Taylor Whitman, VP of Operations, leaned forward with practiced concern. His tailored suit and carefully cultivated salt and pepper beard projected trustworthiness and authority. "We've launched 3 diversity initiatives this quarter. Our numbers look excellent on paper." "Paper doesn't tell the whole story," Damon replied, looking directly at Taylor. "People don't leave good jobs without a reason." The Human Resources Director, Sophia Patel, cleared her throat. "Exit interviews cite culture fit and limited growth opportunities as the primary reasons. But those are typically safe answers that don't burn bridges." Damon tapped his finger on the table, unconvinced. "What are we missing here?" After the meeting, Damon remained in the boardroom alone, the city skyline stretching behind him. He pulled up the anonymous employee review platform on his laptop. The public-facing reviews painted Horizon as progressive and innovative. But when he filtered for employees who had left in the past 6 months, a different picture emerged. Great benefits, but advancement depends on who you know, not what you know. Incredible technology being built by diverse teams, but credit often flows in only one direction. 2 different companies exist here, the one in the recruiting brochures and the one you actually work in. Damon sat back, a heaviness settling in his chest. He reached for the worn family photo he kept in his wallet, his grandmother in her domestic worker uniform, his mother in her nurse's scrubs, and himself as a child between them. They had taught him that true leadership meant seeing what others missed. Something was happening in his company that reports and metrics weren't capturing. His phone buzzed with a calendar alert. Project Nexus Review, Development Team Presentation, 11 a.m. Damon stood, straightening his tie. Perhaps observing teams in action would provide insights that data couldn't. The glass-walled conference room on the 14th floor hummed with anticipation. Project Nexus represented Horizon's ambitious push into artificial intelligence ethics technology that could detect and mitigate bias in algorithmic decision-making. The irony of what Damon was about to witness escaped no one but himself. Jamal Williams, a brilliant software engineer who had joined Horizon 2 years ago from MIT, stood at the front of the room. His presentation materials were impeccably organized, his posture confident despite being the youngest person present. The digital display behind him showed complex flowcharts mapping ethical decision frameworks. Our breakthrough came when we realized traditional bias detection models fail in multi-layered systems, Jamal explained, his voice steady and measured. We developed what we're calling recursive fairness protocols that sounds unnecessarily complicated, interrupted Scott Thompson, a mid-level engineering manager. His interruption carried an ease that suggested habitual practice. Wouldn't a standard verification model work just as well? Several heads turned toward Thompson, then back to Jamal, who took a measured breath before responding. Actually, standard models break down when... I think we should move on to implementation timelines, Thompson cut in again. We're spending too much time on theoretical frameworks. Damon, observing from the back of the room, noticed how several team members shifted uncomfortably. Others seemed to find sudden interest in their notebooks or devices. Jamal attempted to continue, navigating through interruptions with remarkable composure. He clicked to a slide showing test results comparing traditional approaches to Horizon's new methodology. 20 minutes later, Brad Davis, a white engineer on the same team, leaned forward. What if we approach this through recursive fairness protocols? If we analyze each decision layer separately, we could catch bias that traditional methods miss. Thompson's face lit up. Now that's innovative thinking, Brad. This is exactly the kind of outside-the-box approach we need. The room fell silent. Jamal's expression remained neutral, but his hands resting on the table tightened imperceptibly. Several team members exchanged glances, a silent communication that spoke volumes. Damon felt a surge of heat rising from his collar. He'd just witnessed his colleague's idea being dismissed and then praised when repeated by someone else minutes later. The data points from his morning review suddenly took human form. As the meeting concluded, Jamal methodically gathered his materials. A coffee-stained copy of his original proposal remained on the table, ignored as team members filed out, many avoiding eye contact. In the hallway, Damon overheard two engineers speaking in hushed tones. "Happened again," one whispered. "Third time this month," replied the other. "Did you see the project assignment email? All the advancement track projects went to Thompson's favorites." Inside the now-empty conference room, Jamal remained, staring at his presentation notes. The confident posture had given way to shoulders bearing invisible weight. Yet there was something else, a quiet determination, as he made additional notes in the margins of his proposal. "I didn't see a problem with the idea when Davis suggested it 5 minutes later," he murmured to himself, unaware of Damon lingering by the doorway. "Funny how that works." Damon stepped back, unseen. The exchange had lasted barely an hour, but it had shattered something fundamental in his understanding of Horizon's culture. This wasn't an isolated incident. It was a symptom of something systemic. And if this happened in a meeting he attended randomly, what occurred when no executives were watching? Damon's corner office offered panoramic views of San Francisco Bay, but tonight his focus remained on the whiteboard filled with organizational charts and question marks. 3 days of traditional investigation had yielded concerning patterns but no definitive answers. HR interviews felt scripted, managers deflected with corporate jargon, and data revealed symptoms without identifying the disease. The city lights flickered on as dusk settled. Damon loosened his tie, frustration mounting. He'd built Horizon on principles of innovation and fairness principles, now revealed as fragile, perhaps even illusory. His desk phone buzzed. "Marcus Jenkins calling," announced his assistant's voice. Damon picked up immediately. Marcus had been his mentor decades ago, the maintenance supervisor who'd hired Damon as a college freshman desperate for tuition money. Now retired after a successful career in operations management, Marcus remained Damon's most trusted advisor. "You sound troubled," Marcus observed after Damon outlined the situation. I've tried everything by the book, Damon admitted. Exit interviews, anonymous surveys, department audits. I'm getting sanitized answers that don't match what I witnessed. When systems protect themselves, traditional methods fail, Marcus replied. His voice carried the wisdom of someone who had navigated corporate structures from the bottom to the top. Sometimes the only way to see the truth is to become invisible to those who think they have power. Damon's eyes drifted to the framed photo on his wall, himself at 20, in a maintenance uniform, mop in hand. You're suggesting I go undercover. I'm suggesting you remember how much you saw when people thought you weren't worth noticing, Marcus answered. Maintenance staff are invisible to most executives, yet they see everything. The idea crystallized with unexpected clarity. Horizon's janitorial services had been outsourced for years, but Damon maintained relationships with the contracting company's leadership, a point of pride that he knew the names of staff who cleaned the offices after hours. 2 hours later, Damon stared at his reflection in his bathroom mirror at home. The expensive haircut was gone, replaced by a simpler style. His designer watch and bespoke suit had been exchanged for a modest Timex and the uniform of Horizon's maintenance contractor. The transformation was both foreign and oddly familiar echoes of his younger self. His phone lit up with a text from Walter Simmons, the contracting company's owner who had agreed to help with the unorthodox plan. All set. You're on the system as David Robinson, new night shift starting tomorrow. Badge will access maintenance areas only. Damon fingered the temporary ID badge, a stark contrast to his executive credentials. This version showed restricted access levels, a reminder of invisible hierarchies within the company he'd built. 2 weeks, he murmured to himself. Complete information blackout to the executive team except Lisa. His CFO would handle critical decisions while he conducted his investigation under the cover story of a strategic planning retreat. The next afternoon, Damon sat in his car in the far corner of Horizon's employee parking structure, heart racing more than it had before any investor pitch or product launch. He'd arrived early for the night shift orientation, conscious of how his luxury vehicle might raise questions. Tomorrow, he'd take public transportation like most maintenance staff. In the small break room on the basement level, Luis Ramirez, the lead maintenance supervisor, eyed the new recruits with practiced assessment. 3 rules, Luis announced to the small group. 1, you're invisible until something's wrong. 2, everything gets documented in the log. 3, we look out for each other because no one else will. Damon nodded along with the others, noting how Luis's gaze lingered on him slightly longer, perhaps recognizing something incongruous about the new hire. The orientation continued with safety protocols and zone assignments. Robinson, you're on floors 12 through 15 this week, Luis said, handing Damon a clipboard. Executive and engineering levels. Keep your head down and your eyes open. Some of them work late and don't like being disturbed. As the other new hires dispersed to their lockers, Luis held Damon back with a gentle hand on his shoulder. You new to this line of work? He asked, his tone curious rather than accusatory. Damon tensed. Is there a problem with my paperwork? Luis shook his head. Your hands. Not calloused enough yet. He smiled slightly. Don't worry. You'll learn. Just remember, in this job, being invisible is a superpower. You see everything while no one sees you. That night, as Damon practiced the efficient cleaning techniques Luis had demonstrated, he reflected on his mentor's words with newfound appreciation. He'd built a company valued at billions, yet had somehow missed fundamental truths about its operation. The weight of the mop in his hands felt like both penance and opportunity. Tomorrow, his real investigation would begin. The harsh scent of industrial disinfectant stung Damon's nostrils as he maneuvered his cleaning cart through Horizon's engineering floor. His muscles already ached from unaccustomed labor, a humbling reminder of privilege. The open-concept workspace stood empty at 8 p.m., except for a few dedicated employees hunched over screens in the dim evening lighting. Damon methodically emptied trash bins, observing without seeming to observe. Names on desks matched his mental organizational chart. When he reached Jamal Williams' workstation, he noted the meticulous organization and a small photo of an elderly woman, likely a grandmother, displayed discreetly beside multiple engineering awards. "Excuse me," a voice called out. Jamal himself approached, working late. "Could you get the recycling bin too? Sorry to add to your work." "No problem," Damon replied, keeping his voice neutral and gaze lowered. "Thanks, man. I appreciate it." Jamal's tone carried genuine respect, not the dismissive acknowledgement Damon had grown accustomed to hearing from executives addressing service staff. As Damon moved his cart toward the conference rooms, he overheard snippets of conversation from Thompson's office, where the manager sat with Brad Davis and two other white male engineers. "Just need to simplify Williams' approach. He overthinks everything, typical academic mindset versus practical application. Should we include him in Thursday's client presentation?" A pause. "Let's have him prepare the materials but keep the presentation team streamlined. We need our strongest communicators." Damon wiped down surfaces with methodical precision, mentally cataloging the subtle ways credit and visibility were being redirected. The executive floor presented different challenges. Here, Damon found himself truly invisible executives walked past without acknowledgement, sometimes talking on phones about sensitive company matters as if he were furniture rather than a person. While cleaning the glass wall of a conference room, he observed Taylor Whitman, VP of Operations, in conversation with two department heads. "The diversity metrics for the quarterly report look excellent," Taylor was saying, gesturing to a presentation displayed on the screen. "We've increased minority hiring by 18% across all departments. Retention remains challenging," noted one department head. Taylor's response sent a chill through Damon. "Some attrition is expected, even beneficial. We need people who can thrive in our culture, not those looking for special accommodations." Later, while emptying Taylor's office trash, Damon noticed a notebook left open on the desk. A page titled Development Tracks showed names organized into columns with different managers assigned. Minority employees appeared disproportionately grouped under managers like Thompson, labeled with a cryptic RT designation. When Taylor suddenly returned, Damon mumbled an apology about cleaning the office. "Just finish quickly," Taylor said without making eye contact, closing the notebook. Damon's badge, the maintenance version with limited access, suddenly felt heavier against his chest. Pattern recognition solidified during Damon's third night. While cleaning the HR department after hours, he observed clear differences in employee files left on desks for processing performance reviews. For similar achievements, contained subtle language differences based on the employee's background. Words like aggressive and ambitious applied differently across demographic lines. The promotion paperwork for an upcoming cycle revealed a disturbing pattern. Candidates with nearly identical qualifications and tenure progressed at significantly different rates depending on their manager and background. Damon's hands trembled slightly as he mopped the floor outside the HR director's office, the implications of what he was discovering becoming increasingly clear. This wasn't just unconscious bias. It appeared systematic. The break room for maintenance staff became an unexpected source of insight. Luis sat beside Damon during their 11 p.m. meal break, sharing a homemade tamale from his lunch container. "You're catching on quick," Luis observed. "Most new guys take longer to find their rhythm." "I'm a fast learner," Damon replied. "Been noticing some things about the different floors." Luis nodded knowingly. "We all do." 15 years here, I could write a book about who treats people right and who doesn't. Their conversation was joined by Sarah, another maintenance worker who handled the marketing floor. "You got the engineering and executive floors right?" she asked Damon. "Watch out for Thompson. He likes to leave accidental messes to see if you clean them properly. Tests people like it's his job to manage us instead of his own team." "You know who surprised me?" Luis added. "That young engineer, Williams. Always acknowledges us, knows my name. Even asked about my son's college applications once. Most people in his position don't see us at all. As the conversation continued, Damon realized the maintenance team had compiled an intricate social map of Horizon's true culture, who demonstrated respect regardless of status, who changed behavior depending on audience, who created unnecessary work as displays of power. "How do you deal with it?" Damon asked. "Being invisible most of the time?" Luis shrugged. "We see things they never will. There's power in that, too." The facade nearly crumbled on the fifth night. While cleaning the innovation lab, Damon encountered Jamal working alone on a prototype, sleeves rolled up, surrounded by circuit boards and notebooks. "Don't mind me," Damon said, staying in character while emptying trash bins. Jamal glanced up, offering a tired smile. "No problem. Actually, could you help me move this workbench? It's too heavy for one person." They repositioned the heavy metal table together, and afterward, Jamal offered Damon a bottled water from the lab's refrigerator. "Thanks for the help." "I'm Jamal." "David," Damon replied, the false name feeling increasingly uncomfortable. "You're new, right? How's it going so far?" The simple human acknowledgement so rare in Damon's undercover experience nearly broke his resolve. Here was an employee struggling within a system designed against him, yet extending basic dignity to someone he perceived as occupying a lower social position. "It's—" Damon hesitated, composing himself. "It's eye-opening." Their conversation was interrupted by Thompson's unexpected arrival. The manager's demeanor shifted visibly when he saw Jamal and Damon talking. "Williams, the prototype should have been documented by now," he snapped, before turning to Damon. "And the maintenance staff shouldn't be in the secure lab areas during work hours." "I asked him to help me move equipment," Jamal explained. Thompson ignored this, addressing Damon directly. "You need to finish your work and move on. This area needs security clearance." "I have clearance," Damon replied, touching the badge on his uniform. Thompson's eyes narrowed at what he perceived as insubordination. "I'll be discussing this with your supervisor." After Thompson left, Jamal shook his head apologetically. "Sorry about that. Not everyone here is like him." "I know," Damon replied, more truth in those two words than Jamal could possibly understand. "They don't even see us most of the time. But when you're invisible, you see everything." The weight of his employee ID badge, the maintenance version that limited his access and defined others' perception of his worth, felt heavier than ever against his chest. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Damon pushed his cleaning cart down the executive hallway. It was nearly midnight day 6 of his undercover operation, and the 15th floor stood empty except for the distant hum of the HVAC system. His muscles had adjusted to the physical labor, but the emotional weight of his discoveries grew heavier each day. Taylor Whitman's office door stood ajar, unusual for the security-conscious VP of operations. Damon hesitated, then pushed his cart inside, ostensibly to empty the trash and clean surfaces. The computer screen glowed softly, logged in and unattended. Taylor must have stepped away momentarily, perhaps to the executive restroom down the hall. Damon's pulse quickened. The opportunity presented both ethical questions and potential answers he couldn't find elsewhere. After a moment's hesitation, he set down his cleaning supplies and moved behind the desk. The open email thread on Taylor's screen bore the subject line, "Development Program Revisions." Damon scanned it quickly, his breath catching as he absorbed the content. From Taylor Whitman. To Scott Thompson, Andrea Mitchell, James Cooper. Subject, Development Program Revisions. Team leaders, our Q3 diversity metrics look excellent for the board presentation. To maintain our competitive culture while meeting external expectations, please implement the following refinements to our development tracks. All high-potential diverse candidates should complete at least 8 months under our challenge managers, Thompson, Mitchell, Cooper, before promotion consideration. Standard track candidates can proceed through normal channels with 4-month rotations. Continue documenting performance with the specific language guidelines provided. Remember that communication issues and cultural fit concerns are acceptable performance notes that won't trigger HR flags. The official promotion criteria remain unchanged in our public documentation, but please refer to our internal assessment matrix for actual advancement decisions. This approach ensures we maintain our public commitment to diversity while preserving our established culture. As always, this communication should remain within our leadership circle. Taylor. Damon felt a cold anger spreading through his chest. The email confirmed his worst suspicions. Not unconscious bias, but deliberate systemic obstruction. With trembling fingers, he pulled out his phone and quickly photographed the screen, then continued searching through Taylor's folders. He found a spreadsheet titled Talent Development Matrix, containing employee names categorized into tracks. Color coding separated standard candidates from diversity candidates, with different advancement timelines and requirements clearly documented. Jamal's name appeared under a section labeled High Potential Extended Assessment, assigned to Thompson with a note. Technical skills excellent. Leadership readiness requires extended evaluation. The sound of footsteps in the hallway sent Damon back to his cleaning cart just as Taylor rounded the corner, phone pressed to his ear. Maintenance, Damon mumbled, head down as he wiped the conference table. Taylor paused his conversation. I didn't request cleaning now. Come back later. Schedule says executive offices tonight, Damon replied, gathering his supplies without making eye contact. Taylor frowned but returned to his call, lowering his voice as he moved toward his desk. Damon exited quietly, heart pounding against his ribs. Once in the hallway, he checked his phone to confirm the evidence was captured clear, damning proof of the system he'd unwittingly allowed to develop. In the maintenance break room at 2 a.m., Damon reviewed the additional photos he'd managed to take. The matrix revealed a pattern of challenge assignments, where minority employees faced artificial barriers to advancement, creating a system that appeared meritocratic while ensuring preferred candidates received advantages. Luis entered the break room, noting Damon's intense expression. Rough night? Damon quickly pocketed his phone. Just tired. Luis nodded knowingly. Something on 12 happened. Thompson reported you for being in restricted areas. Damon tensed. I have clearance for all my assigned floors. I know. I handled it. Luis poured coffee from the communal pot. Told him you're one of my best new people. But watch yourself around him. He enjoys making problems for people he thinks can't fight back. The irony wasn't lost on Damon how quickly he'd become part of the invisible workforce that executives like Thompson felt entitled to control despite having no actual authority over them. Thanks for having my back, Damon said sincerely. Luis studied him for a moment. You know, you remind me of someone. Can't quite place it. Damon managed a neutral expression. Just one of those faces, I guess. Later that night, after his shift ended, Damon sat in his car reviewing the evidence he'd gathered. The smoking gun emails revealed a deliberately crafted system that maintained the appearance of diversity while systematically undermining advancement for minority employees. The injustice burned in his chest, not just for what was happening, but that it occurred in the company he'd built. His executive ID badge lay on the passenger seat beside the maintenance badge he now wore. 2 identical photos, 2 entirely different sets of access and assumptions. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. One badge opened every door, while the other rendered him simultaneously essential and invisible. Tomorrow would be his final day undercover. It was time to prepare for the revelation that would change everything. The executive boardroom hummed with tension as Horizon's leadership team assembled for the emergency meeting. CFO Lisa Chen had called the session, citing urgent strategic concerns requiring immediate attention. The morning sunlight streamed through the windows, casting long shadows across the polished table. "Where's Damon?" Taylor asked, checking his watch impatiently. "His strategic retreat ended yesterday." Lisa's expression remained neutral. He'll be joining us shortly. The room filled with department heads and senior managers, including Scott Thompson, who sat confidently near Taylor. The digital display at the front remained dark, holding whatever revelations had prompted this unusual gathering. At exactly 9 a.m., the boardroom door opened. Conversation halted as all eyes turned to the unexpected figure entering a man in a maintenance uniform pushing a cleaning cart. "Excuse me," Taylor began dismissively. "This is a private meeting." The maintenance worker looked up, meeting Taylor's gaze directly. A collective gasp rippled through the room as recognition dawned. "Actually," Damon Reynolds said, his voice carrying the full weight of his authority despite his janitor's uniform, "I called this meeting." He walked to the head of the table, the squeaking wheels of the cleaning cart cutting through the stunned silence. With deliberate movements, he placed his maintenance ID badge on the table, then reached into his pocket and set his executive badge beside it. "For the past 2 weeks, I've been working as a member of our maintenance staff. David Robinson, night shift, floors 12 through 15. Damon's gaze swept across the faces of his leadership team. "I've learned more about Horizon's true culture in those 2 weeks than in 2 years of reports and metrics." Thompson shifted uncomfortably. Taylor's expression hardened into careful neutrality. "This isn't some reality TV stunt," Damon continued, his voice steady. "This was the only way to understand why we're losing valuable talent, particularly our minority employees, at an alarming rate." He activated the display screen, which showed the first of several damning slides. "What I discovered was not unconscious bias or isolated incidents, but a systematic approach to undermining diversity while maintaining the appearance of inclusion." The email thread between Taylor and the department managers appeared on the screen, followed by the color-coded talent matrix. The evidence was methodically presented, irrefutable, specific, and devastating. "Our public commitment to diversity was undermined by private practices designed to ensure that certain employees faced artificial barriers to advancement," Damon explained, highlighting specific sections of the documents. "Minority employees were deliberately placed under managers known for creating hostile environments as a test of their resilience." Taylor leaned forward. "Damon, you're misinterpreting standard talent development practices. Different employees require different management approaches." "Is that what this is?" Damon pulled up another slide showing performance reviews for 2 employees with nearly identical achievements but starkly different language. "Or this." The screen shifted to the development tracks showing extended timelines for minority employees. "Every company has development tracks," Taylor countered, his composure cracking slightly. "High standards aren't discrimination. Different standards for different people based on their background is exactly what discrimination means," Damon replied evenly. "But it goes deeper than paperwork." The door opened again, and Luis Ramirez entered, followed by Jamal Williams and several other employees from diverse backgrounds. Their presence shifted the energy in the room dramatically. "I've asked some colleagues to join us," Damon explained. "People whose perspectives have been systematically excluded from these conversations." Jamal stepped forward, standing taller than he had in the project meeting days earlier. "I've documented 27 instances where my contributions were dismissed, then implemented when repeated by someone else." His voice remained professional, but the suppressed anger was palpable. "I stayed because I believed in Horizon's mission. But I've watched 5 talented colleagues leave in the past year alone." Luis spoke next. 15 years on maintenance staff teaches you to see patterns. The executives who treat service staff as invisible are invariably the same ones who undermine employees they consider different." Taylor's face flushed. "This is ridiculous. Maintenance staff have no insight into executive decisions or talent management." "That's exactly the problem," Damon replied. "You believe certain people are worth listening to and others aren't. That arrogance created a shadow culture inside Horizon that directly contradicts our stated values." Damon walked around the table. his janitor's uniform now a powerful symbol rather than a disguise. I founded this company on principles of innovation and fairness. Somewhere along the way, we lost sight of those principles. He stopped beside Taylor's chair. Taylor, your employment at Horizon is terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you to collect your personal belongings. The room fell silent as Taylor stood, shock giving way to cold anger. You'll regret this theatrical overreaction. The board won't. The board received copies of all this evidence an hour ago, Lisa Chen interjected. They've expressed full support for all corrective actions. As security arrived to escort Taylor out, Damon turned to Thompson and the other managers implicated in the evidence. You have choices to make. Those willing to acknowledge these failures and commit to our new direction may have a place in Horizon's future. Those who aren't should tender their resignations by the end of day. After Taylor's departure, Damon addressed the room with renewed purpose. This isn't just about removing bad actors. It's about acknowledging that we built systems that allowed discrimination to flourish while maintaining a facade of inclusion. Starting today, that changes fundamentally. He picked up both ID badges from the table, holding them side by side for all to see. 2 badges, 2 entirely different experiences of the same company. Our challenge now is to build a horizon where these represent only different jobs, not different levels of respect, opportunity, or belonging. The weight of the moment hung in the air, a company at its inflection point, confronting uncomfortable truths that would either transform it or define its failure. The town hall meeting in Horizon's largest conference space overflowed with employees from every department. Maintenance staff stood alongside engineers, marketing specialists next to finance analysts, a visual representation of the unified company Damon envisioned. Tension and anticipation filled the room as Damon, now back in business attire but wearing his maintenance badge prominently beside his executive credentials, took the stage. Over the past week, you've heard rumors and received emails about leadership changes, he began, his voice carrying clearly through the space. Today, I want to be transparent about what happened and, more importantly, what happens next. The room fell silent as Damon outlined his undercover investigation and the discriminatory systems discovered. No names were mentioned beyond Taylor's departure, but the practices were described in clear, unflinching detail. Many of you experienced these barriers firsthand, Damon acknowledged. Others benefited from them without realizing it, and some knew but felt powerless to speak up. Today marks the end of those systems and the beginning of something better. A slide appeared on the screen titled Horizon Reset. It outlined comprehensive changes across the organization, transparent promotion criteria. All advancement requirements would be publicly documented, with quarterly audits to ensure consistent application. Blind review processes. Initial project and performance evaluations would occur without names or identifying information. Structural reorganization. Management teams would be restructured to ensure diverse perspectives at all decision-making levels. Accountability systems. New reporting channels would bypass traditional hierarchies when concerns arose. Comprehensive training. Not just standard diversity training, but specific programs addressing how bias manifests in technical evaluations and credit distribution. Initial skepticism showed on many faces. Promises without action had created the current crisis. I understand your doubt, Damon said, addressing the unspoken concern. So we're backing words with immediate actions and measurable outcomes. Lisa Chen joined him on stage with additional slides showing specific metrics that would measure success. Not just hiring statistics, but promotion velocity, project assignment equity, and credit distribution across teams. These aren't aspirational targets, she explained. They're tied directly to executive compensation, including Damon's and mine. Murmurs spread through the audience as the implications sank in. Damon continued, "Leadership changes begin today." He gestured to the side of the stage, where Luis Ramirez stood alongside several employees from various departments. "I'm announcing our new Ethics and Culture Council with direct reporting lines to the board." Luis will chair this independent body, which will have authority to review any decision or practice that impacts our workplace culture. Luis stepped forward, the maintenance supervisor now positioned as a critical leadership voice. For years, those of us in service roles have observed patterns others missed. Now that perspective becomes part of Horizon's governance. The announcement sent a ripple through the room. This wasn't symbolic change, but a fundamental redistribution of power. Jamal Williams joined them next, standing confidently as Damon continued. Additionally, I'm proud to announce our new Innovation Fairness team, led by Jamal Williams. This group will ensure that credit and opportunities flow to their proper sources, regardless of title or background. Jamal addressed his colleagues directly. Every great company talks about meritocracy. We're building systems to finally make that real. As the presentation continued, Damon outlined changes to physical spaces as well. The removal of restricted access areas except where required for security, redesigned collaborative environments that encouraged cross-hierarchical interaction, and a symbolic but powerful change to the ID badge system itself. Starting next week, all Horizon badges will have standardized access levels based on job requirements, not title or department, Damon explained, holding up a prototype of the new badge design. The visual hierarchy that separated us disappears with this change. The energy in the room shifted as concrete changes accumulated, skepticism giving way to cautious optimism, then to engaged participation as employees began asking questions and suggesting additional improvements. 3 hours later, as the town hall concluded, Damon found himself surrounded by employees from all levels, many speaking directly to executives for the first time. The invisible barriers that had segmented the company were already beginning to dissolve. Scott Thompson approached through the crowd, his expression suggesting internal conflict. He stopped in front of Damon, shoulders squared. "I've been reflecting on my management approach," he said stiffly. "I didn't see it as discrimination. I thought I was maintaining standards." "That's how systemic problems perpetuate," Damon replied evenly. "They masquerade as standards or traditions or the way things are done." Thompson nodded slowly. "I've submitted my acceptance of the remedial training program, and I'd like to request Jamal as my mentor through the process." The humility in the request represented its own small revolution. In the weeks that followed, Horizon transformed through both dramatic shifts and subtle recalibrations. The organizational chart flattened, decision-making processes opened to wider input, and new leadership emerged from previously overlooked corners of the company. Most telling was the implementation of the Innovation Attribution System, a transparent method of tracking ideas from conception to implementation, ensuring credit remained with originators regardless of who amplified their voice. Within a month, the system revealed patterns that had been invisible in aggregate data but clear in individual experiences. During the first open project review under the new system, Damon sat quietly at the back of the room, watching as Jamal confidently led a diverse team through a presentation. When questions arose, Jamal directed them to the team members responsible for specific components, a conscious redistribution of visibility and credit that changed the team's dynamic. The new ID badges appeared on lanyards throughout the building, visually identical across job functions, their subtle redesign representing the larger transformation underway. What had once been a symbol of hierarchy had become a token of belonging. "Equal opportunity isn't giving everyone the same tools," Damon had told the leadership team during implementation. "It's removing the barriers some people face that others don't even see." 6 weeks after the revelation, those words had transformed from aspiration to action, the beginning of systemic correction that would eventually reshape Horizon's culture from its foundation. 3 months after the restructuring, Horizon's transformation manifested in both measurable metrics and everyday interactions. The engineering floor, once segmented by invisible social boundaries, now buzzed with collaborative energy that transcended department lines and hierarchical levels. In a glass-walled project room, Jamal led a diverse team through final testing of Project Nexus. The AI ethics framework that had once been dismissed in the infamous meeting was now Horizon's flagship initiative, attracting industry attention and partnership opportunities. The recursive fairness protocols are performing beyond benchmark expectations, Jamal explained to the assembled team. Around the table sat engineers from various backgrounds, alongside representatives from marketing, legal, and notably 2 members of the maintenance staff providing perspectives on practical implementation. Luis pointed out something we'd all missed, Jamal continued, nodding to the former maintenance supervisor who now balanced dual roles in operations and ethics oversight. The system needs to account for who performs maintenance on the AI itself, who has the literal ability to open the black box. That insight completely transformed our approach to transparency. Luis smiled modestly. When you spend years watching how systems really work versus how they're designed to work, you develop a different perspective. Later that afternoon, in the company cafe, Damon observed the transformed social landscape from an inconspicuous corner table. Where once executives had clustered separately from junior staff, the seating arrangements now reflected more integrated relationships. More telling were the conversations people, speaking with the relaxed authenticity that emerges when artificial barriers dissolve. Sarah from the maintenance team shared a table with software engineers, their animated discussion suggesting genuine engagement rather than obligatory inclusion. Nearby, Jamal sat with Scott Thompson. Their former antagonistic relationship evolved into a complex but productive mentorship that benefited both men. Damon's quiet observation was interrupted when Luis joined him, setting down a coffee cup. "Still monitoring the experiment?" Luis asked with knowing amusement. Damon smiled. "Old habits." "How's the Ethics Council handling the product timeline debate?" "Better than expected. Having marketing and engineering actually talk directly instead of through layers of management revealed the assumptions causing the conflict." Luis took a sip of coffee. "The maintenance perspective helped too. We pointed out that the release schedule ignored who would actually implement the updates on client systems." The conversation paused as they watched Jamal approach Scott in the cafe line, the 2 men exchanging what appeared to be genuine laughter over something on Jamal's phone, likely his young daughter, whom he spoke of often. "That still surprises me," Damon admitted, nodding toward the unlikely duo. "Redemption stories usually do," Luis replied. "Thompson's never going to win humanitarian awards, but he's actually trying. Some people just need their worldview forcibly expanded." Their conversation was interrupted by an alert on Damon's phone, the quarterly metrics dashboard, showing the impact of Horizon's structural changes. Employee retention had stabilized, with minority employee turnover decreasing 62% from the previous year. Project contribution tracking showed more equitable distribution of both work and credit, while innovation metrics revealed increased patent applications from previously underrepresented teams. "Numbers don't tell the whole story," Damon said, showing Luis the dashboard, "but they're heading in the right direction." "It's the small moments that matter more," Luis observed, gesturing subtly around the cafe. "People bringing their whole selves to work instead of their carefully edited versions." In the product development lab that evening, Jamal worked late finalizing the Nexus demonstration for potential partners. The glass walls, once a source of anxious visibility, now provided a comforting connection to the wider company space where other teams similarly pursued their projects. A maintenance worker entered, beginning her evening rounds. "Hi, Elena," Jamal greeted her by name. "Sorry for the mess. We've been at it all day." "No problem," she replied with genuine warmth. "I heard about the big presentation tomorrow. The whole maintenance team is pulling for you." Jamal smiled. "Thanks. Actually, would you mind taking a look at something? We're designing the interface for maintenance mode, and I could use a perspective from someone who actually handles system maintenance." Elena set down her cleaning supplies and joined him at the workstation. her expertise in physical systems maintenance providing insights the engineering team had overlooked. 20 minutes later, Jamal had incorporated several of her suggestions into the interface design. "You should be credited on this component," Jamal said, adding her name to the attribution system. "That permissions hierarchy suggestion solves problems we didn't even recognize." Elena looked surprised, then pleased. "First time my name's been on anything but a cleaning schedule around here." "Not the last, if we're doing this right," Jamal replied. Across the building, Damon concluded a board meeting where he'd presented the quarterly results of the company restructuring. The skepticism that had greeted his initial changes had given way to cautious approval as the financial metrics showed Horizon's market position strengthening alongside its cultural transformation. "The strongest teams aren't built on perfect people," Damon had told the board, "but on people who are perfectly honest about fixing their mistakes." Walking through the engineering department on his way out, Damon paused to observe Jamal and Elena collaborating on the interface design. The scene embodied everything he'd hoped to build: expertise recognized regardless of title, contributions valued based on merit rather than position. The new ID badges worn by both Jamal and Elena caught the light as they worked visually identical, despite their different roles, a small but significant symbol of the larger transformation taking shape across Horizon. 1 year after Damon's undercover journey, Horizon Tech hosted an anniversary event unlike any in the company's history. The celebration took place not in an exclusive venue, but in the company's central atrium, transformed for the evening into a space that accommodated employees from every level and department. Digital displays around the room showcased the year's achievements. Horizon's retention metrics had reversed completely, now leading the industry in employee satisfaction across demographic groups. Project Nexus had launched to critical acclaim, with its ethical AI framework being adopted by 3 Fortune 500 companies. Most significantly, Horizon had been recognized with the Technology Ethics Innovation Award, an achievement that reflected both technical excellence and cultural transformation. Near the center of the room, a simple plaque had been installed. "Invisible doesn't mean unseen," in honor of those whose perspectives transformed our company. The dedication acknowledged the maintenance team whose insights had catalyzed Horizon's evolution. Damon stood at the edge of the gathering, observing with quiet satisfaction. The social dynamics reflected genuine integration executives conversing with junior staff, maintenance personnel engaged in technical discussions, new employees being welcomed with authentic inclusion. Jamal approached, now carrying the title of Chief Innovation Officer, his rapid advancement reflecting genuine merit finally recognized. "Quite a difference from last year," he observed, following Damon's gaze across the celebration. "From the outside, we were already a success story," Damon replied. "But we were building on a fractured foundation." "Speaking of building," Jamal said, "the mentorship program you asked about has 87 participants now. Thompson's actually become one of our most committed mentors, surprisingly enough." Their conversation was joined by Luis, whose dual role in operations and ethics had evolved into a formal position as Chief Culture Officer. "The board approved the expansion of the attribution system," Luis reported. 3 competitors have requested our framework after seeing the results." Damon nodded appreciatively. "The measure of leadership isn't how high you climb, but whether you send the elevator back down for others." As the celebration continued, Damon reflected on the journey that had transformed both his company and his understanding of leadership. The maintenance badge he'd worn during his undercover days was framed in his office now, a permanent reminder of perspectives that had always existed but remained unseen. The new uniform ID badges throughout Horizon no longer separated employees into visible hierarchies. Instead, they represented a culture where contribution mattered more than position, where every voice carried weight, and where invisible barriers had given way to genuine opportunity. The company Damon had built was finally becoming the company he had envisioned, not through grand pronouncements, but through systematic changes that realigned power, recognition, and opportunity. If this story of workplace transformation moved you, don't let the conversation end here. At Beat Stories, we uncover the hidden dynamics that shape our workplaces and society, bringing you authentic narratives where justice prevails and true leadership emerges. Like this video to help others discover this story, and subscribe to Beat Stories for weekly undercover investigations that expose injustice and celebrate those who stand against broken systems. Every subscription supports our team as we continue to shed light on stories that would otherwise remain in the shadows. Remember, the most powerful changes often begin when someone has the courage to see what others overlook. Join our community of changemakers today. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a Beat story that might just inspire your own journey toward creating more equitable spaces.
You've seen the story. Now what will you do with it? At Beat Stories, we believe reflection is good, but action is better. Subscribe, share, speak, because awareness is only the first step.